Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is David Rosa and I am the Environmental Manager at CSA Group. CSA Group is an international consulting firm based in the United States. We provide architectural, engineering, and planning services to cities that are vulnerable to sea level rise, storm surge, and economic strain as a result of compromised infrastructure. Our main focus is increasing overall resilience. I am very happy and pleased with the invitation to be part of the webinar. The topic that we will be covering today is wetland in urban environment. I started my career in 1999, and since the beginning I was very interested in wetlands, the diversity in terms of biology and the benefits that this type of ecosystem provide. It is really amazing all the things that you can find or encounter in wetland areas or wetland ecosystems. Wetlands are complex and priceless ecosystems that need protection. It is very important that we put the necessary effort to fully understand this type of habitat. That's the only way we can properly protect, conserve, and manage wetlands. More specifically, when we are referring to urban areas that are expanding or growing quickly or fast. So moving on, here's the agenda for this webinar and the topics that we are going to be covering today. Please note that there's going to be a quiz at the end of the presentation. So, what is a wetland? As you already know, wetlands are overflow areas for rivers, and such are natural rainwater buffers. They are transitional habitats in succession from open water to land. In other words, the wetlands are vital link between land and water. This means that wetlands are covered or saturated under normal conditions with water. If you go to the internet and look for wetland definition, the reality is that you will find multiple definitions. However, the definitions will be very similar and not likely contradict each other. The difference will be more towards the parameters and criteria that governments apply to establish jurisdiction and their regulatory programs. Keep in mind that there are three main components in wetland areas or things that form a wetland: hydrology via surface or groundwater, hydrophytic vegetation, which is vegetation that can survive in areas flooded or inundated for a long time or long periods, hydric soils or anaerobic soils as the result of inundation or saturation for a long period of time. Typically depending on those three things, it's going to be the type of wetland. Wetlands can be natural and man-made, freshwater, saltwater, or brackish. Wetlands include swamps and marshes, billabongs, lakes and lagoons, salt marshes, mudflats, mangrove, coral reefs, bogs, fens, and peatlands. Wetlands do not have water all the time, so many wetlands are seasonal and remain dry for long periods. That's why, when delineating wetlands, you need to look at the prevalence of vegetation, hydrology indicators, and also the soils. That's how you can, depending on the season and the region, that's how you can define the extension of the wetland habitats or the wetland ecosystems. Depending on the location, extension, and composition of a wetland, it's going to be its function and value. Wetlands are a critical part of our natural environment. They perform many functions and are vital for environmental, economic, social, and cultural reasons. Wetland helps to reduce the impacts of floods, absorb pollutants, and improve water quality. Um, it, they also help with shoreline protection from wave action. So wetlands can be thought as a biological supermarket. The complex dynamic feeding relationship among organisms inhabiting wetland environments is a good example of the food web. Regrettably, wetlands have been subject to misconception throughout history. Wetlands often been referred as wet wastelands, such as sources of mosquitoes, fly, unpleasant odors, and disease. In the past, people thought of wetlands as places to avoid or even eliminate. This is why people drain and fill wetlands without understanding the consequences, right? Um, Such as flooding, saltwater intrusion into aquifer, water supply, all of that. Um, you have two causes of wetland losses and degradation. One is human action, and two is natural threats. Um, Under human action, you have discharges or, with pollutants from drainage and runoff, dredging and filling, diking, damming, tilling and grazing, levees, lodging and mining. Um, Remember that wetlands are a complex and balanced ecosystem. So if you change their nutrient levels or you add more nutrients, that is going to trigger something. That could be the overgrowth of some species. It may bring invasive species to a particular area. So it's very important, that aspect as well. And that's, kind of what we typically see by human actions, how we change, the change of that balance. Also releasing toxic and chemical. That's something that, wetlands are subject due to human activities. Under natural threats, we have erosion, subsidence, sea level rise, droughts, hurricanes, and others. Um, so, taking into consideration what we have discussed already, going through, we went through the overview of the wetlands, the function and values, the type of wetlands, and the misconception throughout history, with the consequences. That there are, applications where wetlands can be integrated into urban environments, or vice versa. So, that creates good opportunities, and we need to take advantage of, all the benefits that wetlands can provide us for free. Remember that wetlands are some of the most biological, diverse, and productive natural ecosystem in the world. They perform many functions that are beneficial to both humans and wildlife, for free. And that makes sense, as I said before, to, as an example, construct wetlands to improve water quality and support wildlife habitat, food supply. Um, Constructed wetlands can also be a cost-effective and technically feasible approach to treating wastewater. That's another example. Here are a few engineering applications or uses, for, to integrate wetlands into urban environment or vice versa. Reconnection of water networks, water bodies, treatment, use them as treatment facility, natural treatment areas for wastewater, habitat management, and stormwater ponds absorbing and cleaning and storing stormwater. They also help to, in the aquifer recharge, and also contribute to the environmental amenity. Such as all the outdoor activities, fishing, hunting, the science, behind, all this, and, as well as the economy, right? The tourism and, you name it. Another consideration for wetland protection is the benefit that they provide us, or the offer, of protection from climate change. Specifically when we are talking about carbon sequestration. As you know, wetlands can store large amount of carbon dioxide. Plants usually grow a lot each year, taking CO2 from the atmosphere by trees and plants through photosynthesis. Then carbon is incorporated into the anaerobic soil, or what people call carbon storage. So this is another reason why we need to protect and do proper management of the wetland areas or wetland ecosystems. In terms of wetland management and planning, there is an urgent need to conserve wetlands through well-focused management actions. That's why we were mentioning at the beginning that it's very important that we fully understand how this type of ecosystem works, and also, if we are going to do something, any development, any infrastructure construction for new or improving infrastructure, and there's impacts over wetland areas, those impacts must be mitigated. Of course, that will depend on the function and value of the wetlands in terms to come with a proper mitigation action, and the proper wetland management and planning. So example of wetland management activities are wetland mitigation. Mitigation can be done through creation, or that's what we call constructed wetlands, enhancement of existing natural wetland habitats, or the restoration of wetland habitats. Water management, habitat management, species management, and management of socioeconomic values and use. In terms of wetland management and planning, it is very important to understand the full spectrum of measures and actions necessary to sustain the site. So, key actions are understanding the habitats and the species occurring, how these interact to form the ecosystem, the natural process behind what we are seeing, threats to these processes, understand the past and present human usage, and any potential or future impact that can affect the process and the management of the area. That key, and that's something that we also take into consideration, take into account when we are doing wetland management and planning. In terms of wetland management and planning, it is very important to understand the full spectrum of measures and actions necessary to sustain the site. So, key actions are understanding the habitats and the species occurring, how these interact to form the ecosystem, the natural process behind what we are seeing, threats to these processes, understand the past and present human usage, and any potential or future impact that can affect the process and the management of the area. That key, and that's something that we also take into consideration, take into account when we are doing wetland management and planning. There is always a risk of management actions being ineffective, especially or specifically, when we do not fully understand, the wetland ecosystems and the services that it provides. This is, here what we are trying to present is the services necessary for production of all other ecosystems. What we need to understand in order to, get the results or the benefits from the wetlands. We have what is necessary: soil formation, nutrient cycling in primary production. That brings us to the products obtained from the ecosystems. Food, fresh water, fuel, biochemicals, genetic resources. Then we have also the regulated services, benefits obtained from regulation of ecosystem processes. Climate regulation, we touched that already, in a previous slide. The disease regulation, water regulation and purification and pollination. And then we also have cultural services, non-material benefits obtained from this type of ecosystems, the spiritual and religious, the recreation and ecotourism, the aesthetic, inspirational, educational sense of place and cultural heritage. There are uncontrollable factors that may or may not be of human origin, that must be also taken into account. As an example, for internal natural factors, there is natural cessation of vegetation. We have variation in water level caused by precipitation. We have external natural factors, related to positive or negative impacts of climate change. That includes variation in currents or sea level. We also have external human-induced factors, that could be diversion of water supply, related to could be related to urban expansion or developments, to agriculture, that also might trigger into changing natural pattern and variability of water flows. Maybe because we are, an area was flood zone now, because of the urban proliferation, that could be some flood control projects, and that, turn into a change in the water allocation regimes, and the natural patterns, the natural flow through this type of ecosystems. Another example or category that brings example is legislation and tradition related factors. That's legal obligation arising from national or local legislation or international commitments, and that's more related to traditional and cultural issues that may include activities such grazing, fishing, and logging rights, and or religious aspects that can affect activities or the management of wetlands, or actions that may affect the natural function of a wetland. And also, physical consideration and constraints such as inaccessibility, which may affect the achievement of management objective, and also, institutional factors could be, more related to the, the responsibilities between organization and agencies for, wetland conservations. I want to show you a few examples of wetlands in urban environments, or how we have integrated the wetlands into urban environments, development. The first one is a wetland creation for the Broward Community College, that's a university campus. The project included the design and development of an on-site natural wetland to be used as an educational training facility, and also stormwater treatment and habitat mitigation. The second one is a wetland mitigation for, from the Florida Department of Transportation, with the objective of, creating and restoring habitat, to compensate for the impacts, wetland impacts, during or as the result of the construction of transportation infrastructure. The third one is U.S. Army Corps of Engineer projects. That project consisted in the construction of a 1 mile bridge to improve water flow into the Everglades National Park. The Tamiami Trail, or the US 41. It's a road that was constructed in 1928 and was blocking the natural flow of the Everglades. So the benefits, or the functional values of the Everglades was recognized, for that region, and that's why they decided, in coordination with other agencies, to remove 1 mile of the existing road and turn that into a bridge to let the water flow, under the bridge and restore the natural flow of the Everglades. That brought some immediate benefits, such as, protection against saltwater intrusion into the aquifer, improve habitat, recreational opportunities, and tourism, and the creation of jobs, among others. Another project is the alternative wastewater treatment system in the island of Haiti. The concept was developed to provide domestic wastewater treatment capabilities, where the water would flow through the wetland, and then particulates and suspended solid would settle in the wetland, having the microbial community attached to the vegetation and suspending the water column will be responsible for the removal of soluble organic compounds. Eventually, the nutrients can also be stored in the soil of the wetland through sedimentation. The last project is related to stormwater runoff. Those are constructed wetlands, by the South Florida Water Management District. The purpose is intercepting the runoff coming from upland and agricultural fields before they reach natural water bodies and the ocean. So the runoff is being treated as big constructed wetland ponds for a specific period of time before they are, the runoff is finally discharged into natural water bodies. So all the pollutants are removed, and the water, would turn into clean water before they reach natural water bodies. I would like to say thank you for your time and let me be part of this presentation. Here is my contact information. If you would like copy of the presentation, please feel free to send me an email and I will be more than happy to provide you a copy. Thank you.